everyone, this is Dave. Quick little note before we get into this episode. We recorded this one day before the announcement of the Kickstarter and the reveal of Dreadball All-Stars in all its detail. So keep that in mind as you're listening to this. I'm actually not in the episode. You don't want to hear my thoughts on Dreadball. I've never actually played Dreadball. But we have Matthias and newcomers Dom and Matthew who actually do know at least something about Dreadball. So just a little disclaimer there. They're going to do an episode in the next few weeks to talk about this new stuff. But, if you have any questions for the crew, make sure you post them below on Spotify or on YouTube. Anyway, back to the episode.
So welcome to the Mantic Universe podcast. This is your host Matthias speaking, and today we are talking about Dreadball. And I'm here with two new co-hosts. This is Matthew and Tom. Hello, guys.
Evening.
Evening. Nice. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Matthew, let's talk to you first. So you are playing Dreadball for a while, I guess. And so tell us a little bit about you. Where did you start gaming and why is that Dreadball on your field of interest?
I started gaming in mid Wales, the Landrindod Wales area, if anyone knows it. And a small club, and we got into Dreadball from season 1, version 1. And some of them back to Kickstarter. I went in on it with the Metabots, which are an unusual team, but they're quite versatile. Since then, I've been playing it on and off for years. And at one point in 2015, I got second place in the Wales and Southwest Regional, which was quite exciting. And we got little prizes as well for participating and vouchers for different places. But yeah, I've always enjoyed playing Dreadball, especially now that the rules are kind of refined and as pretty much the best they can be at the moment.
Good to hear. And Tom, what about you?
So I feel like I was introduced to Dreadball not long after I got into sort of hobby tabletop gaming, more or less. I want to say it was about 2013-ish when some friends I made at uni introduced me to these sort of more involved, shall we say, board games and tabletop games. I was introduced to Dreadball First Edition at the time. Didn't really get to engage with it because the local game shop that was running the local Dreadball League closed doors a week after. But I liked the game enough that I jumped on the second edition Kickstarter and have been sort of on and off playing pretty much since that Kickstarter delivered, and been sort of keeping a close eye on what's happening with Dreadball as much as I could, doing a little bit of effort to travel to a tournament when I can, at least like once a year when stuff was happening. While I occasionally go a little overboard and burn out on Dreadball, it remains my kind of favorite tabletop game of all time at the moment.
Oh, that's great. So just anybody wondering what if there's some background noise, I have again the cat in front of me, which is seeking for attention. So please beware. I myself, I think I started with Dreadball Extreme. I mean, this was in the 2010s. So Kickstarters was all a little bit, how to say, for the non-UK people or non-US people in Central Europe, a little bit of a tricky thing and still hesitated. So I think I got the Dreadball Extreme box off retail. That's where I started with it, and then always played a little bit on and off. And while I tried to get into second edition, it kind of not happening here around because I don't know if it was the Kickstarter and everything is going too quickly or things like that, but I was also following the game again, have my teams painted, and but I hardly ever played it, so just following around. So that's why I'm a little bit excited what's happening now when this is revived, because what we are now getting this year from Mantic isn't really a new edition, but a revival with a new intro game. but we're going to talk a little bit later about this one. So, for those new to things and jumping into the podcast because of our other Mantic topics talking, what is Dreadball? Dreadball is Mantic's sports space board game. It's, how to say, I feel like a sci-fi version of basketball. If that
Definitely.
fits. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A sci-fi basketball, but with a lot more violence and loads of different species.
Yeah. I think it was
I'm
always
actually wondering if
interesting.
handball wouldn't be a better comparison, but handball
Yeah.
is, I want to say, mild, just slightly more esoteric than basketball, so it's not a bad comparison.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the most Europeans would feel the connection with handball better, while the US listeners might say, "But what's handball? Is this something like basketball?" And yeah, so I guess a mix of basketball, handball, and rugby.
Yeah, more or
Arguably,
less.
given the violent aspect.
Yeah. And it's in space. And this is why the first edition was interesting for a lot of people coming into the sci-fi gaming, because it introduced not just the main factions from the Warpath universe, but a lot of small side factions and niche factions. Everyone would hate that they come to Dead Zone or the Warpath Firefight games later on. I think we got the Nameless and the Reps are the ones that made it over to a point, yeah. So first edition, I think, launched in 2012 with a Kickstarter. That was a good, successful one for Mantic in the early days. And then we got about 4 seasons with different teams on with Ultimate Dreadball. This, I think, was the multiplayer game. And Dreadball Extreme, this was more like the on-off game, or the non-campaign version of the thing. It's
yeah, it was basically a Dreadball Underground. I actually helped with the Kickstarter as well, so my name is in the book, and that's quite nice to see. But they added, they just kind of stripped it all back, and they have like 2 strike zones instead of the 3 on each side, and they added crates with explosions in them. That's how they made it more extreme, and there's no ref. They're all everything's just legal. Everything's on the table. And they
there was actually 6 seasons in first edition, but I do believe that Extreme followed that. And then second edition kind of brought it all together and added a few new teams.
Yeah, and Extreme brought 2 regular teams with it, and 1 kind of a mishmash of different alien species that are not really tournament viable, but for casual stuff and recruiting different beasts into your team, it's quite handy.
Yeah. So now I'm not sure. Dreadball's second edition happened a little bit later after the Extreme. I think it was
I want to say around 2015-ish, maybe 2016. I think it delivered in 2017, so I wonder how long it took between the actual campaign and the delivery.
Yeah, because I have also 2015 in mind for the campaign, but I'm not sure if it's so. Please, every listener, be kind with us. We are old guys, not our memory isn't the best anymore. So it might be a year one off, but so 2015-16, the second edition. And I think this is also where Mantic lost it a little bit, because they released everything at once. So everyone who was into Dreadball bought what they got on release, with not much going to retail soon later. And it was also the transition period for them to switch from PVC to resin in their main games. And I think Dreadball second edition was the last big game they made with hand-sculpted models only, so no digital sculpts for them to re-release them on their own later as well. And this is, I think, where the interest in the public in general died a little bit off. So how did second edition went for you guys, Matthew?
Well, we were very keen to get into second edition. We loved first edition. I think it did come out soon after the tournament because that tournament was tail end of season 1, well, version 1. So they had some new teams come in, lots of different varied models, different shenanigans going with each team as well. But yeah, we very much enjoyed it as a group. We still do. I have at least 1 or 2 of the teams, and then they brought in a load more MVPs, and it just, I think it was a bit too much at once for some people, or for a lot of people, because the support behind it kind of fell down because everything was out at once, and that's the thing, you have to spread it out over time. And this is a little bit before streaming services, so we didn't have the luxury of absorbing everything at once, binge watching. It just felt a bit like binge buying Dreadball at that point. But it's a shame.
Yeah, I think binge buying is a nice fit to this kind of things, and I guess this is a problem because when you go into a Kickstarter with that many teams and models, you buy or you pledge everything you want, and then you get way too much at once at home, and you don't know where to start, where to play, what to choose first, and things get, then you want to paint everything, and then you get there into a hangar that you don't know what can focus anymore and things like that. So you want way too much at once, and it's just sitting on a shelf for a bit with. Yeah, it's
and yeah, I feel they did 1 or 2 unpopular design choices because they changed the when first they have a hex base, a clear perspex hexagon base for each model, for each player, but they changed it to have slats in the front, so you could tell the front arc, which is okay, but it's a bit weird. And the second one was they changed the structure of the ball itself. The original ball, which I have lots of, this tiny little thing, so tiny I've just dropped it on the floor.
Yeah.
But it is that size, and it's got a little base like that.
So for all those listening on Spotify, it's about half a centimeter base.
Yeah, roughly just over half a centimeter base.
Yeah.
But the new design it changed the ball so it's got on a little spiky bit at the bottom, and you can put it in a plinth or in the base itself. And putting the ball on the base was fiddly enough as it is without trying to find the hole and put the pin in.
Yeah.
So much so that people have magnetized balls for their teams. And it's a lot easier that way, but I still like the method of just sliding the ball straight onto the base next to the player's feet.
Yeah, I mean, the pin wasn't the best idea that they had in a long while. So it's, I think, and I mean, it's also way too fiddly for an easy board game. It's immersive and you can't drop it over, but then it would say, might have been better to just use metal balls and put magnetic bases into the box if you want that kind of gameplay. But it's... I hated that ball. It's like I lost so many just by moving stuff around. It's.
Are you talking about the first edition ball?
Yeah.
That you just like, or are you talking about the second edition one?
Both.
Fair enough. Both. I have some thoughts on that. We can get to that in a moment.
Yeah, no, like I have, so I have cats, and small things to throw off the table for cats. You lose. Just not a bad friendly board game.
It's not the fault of the gamer's design. That is kind of just life with cats. Like any will have relatively small fiddly bits. If they go off the table or if the cat gets on the table, that is mayhem. That's just cats for you.
Yeah, they half the time they don't even mean it. They're just like, oh, I'll have a fuss and get this stuff out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's that stuff doing on my table?
Oh,
And
especially that. Yeah.
And that's the thing. The board is a rectangle, and they love enclosed spaces. So you put any kind of circle or square on the floor, and they'll just sit.
It's so that's when you have cats, you tend to love magnetic bases and this kind of stuff. It helps.
Mm.
So Tom, what's your thought about second edition and your experience with it?
So, funnily enough, I had a quite different approach to second edition when the Kickstarter was happening and when it was delivering, and I think that may have contributed to me sort of, I don't want to say missing out, but kind of avoiding all the pitfalls to do with its admittedly wonky release, from what I understand. What happened is when I was first introduced to Dreadball, briefly, the friends that got me into it had some spare teams, so I was gifted a human and a marauder team, and didn't do anything with it for years because, like I said, the local scene just suddenly died and kind of never really picked itself up. But when second edition Kickstarter launched, I looked at it and thought, okay, there is a pledge level that gets me 4 more teams and basically everything I need for the game, because all I had at the time was a pitch, the cards, the ref, and the 2 teams. And I think a ball. And I thought with that, with 6 teams to choose from, I basically have a decently varied board game, and that will be all I need. And when second edition finally delivered, I very quickly fell in love with basically everything it was doing. And then started looking for other teams, and within a year or two, more or less, I think, assembled the full collection of teams. I still have some MVPs missing, but I liked it enough to try and get more of it to have, shall we say, access to the full experience. But yeah, I started by sort of looking at it, okay, this will be a boxed board game rather than something that I have to sort of collect and work on, and then liked it enough to do it anyway. And it was kind of me who sort of started introducing friends to it, and some of them managed to later get their hands on their own retail copy of second edition or a particular team. And I can't say there's a very lively scene around here, but generally when Dreadball does happen to come out, most commonly out of my initiative, it's enjoyed. So the basis topic is bases and magnets very much are a hot thing for Dreadball. I feel that using magnets kind of elevates the Dreadball experience, exactly because it helps with the fiddliness. And funnily enough, so yeah, the second edition ball was a disaster, but from what I understand, like, the concept is solid. You get a base that has a little hole and a ball with a peg. The peg goes into its own base if it's somewhere on the pitch. The peg goes into the base if it's held by a player. Conceptually, it's solid, but it's fiddly as hell, even on the concept stage. And sadly, B, from what I understand, that I'm not sure, you can quote me on that, but I remember reading someone recalling that there was basically a bit of a mix-up with the scale of the second edition minis, specifically for the teams introduced in second edition and the balls, the new parts, where, again, I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but I'm under the impression that both the designers on Mantic's side and later the manufacturers sort of took I want to say it's 20% sort of margin of error in terms of scale. Only one side was supposed to apply that, but because both did, all of that came out a little too big. As a result, the second edition minis barely fit into the second edition bases. They fit decently enough into first edition bases, fortunately. But most importantly, the ball peg does not fit into the second edition base unless you got very lucky. So it's weird. Funnily enough, in case anyone is considering picking up Dreadball and likes magnets, if you get 2mm by 1mm round magnets, they fit perfectly into the second edition bases, just by friction alone. You don't even need any glue. Stick a flat round magnet on the base of the first edition ball, and you are golden. As long as you keep your magnet polarity consistent across bases and minis, you are fine. And then again,
Which
there's
is
a
the
space
hardest
for a
part with
magnet
small
in the
magnets.
sort of under the first edition base, so you can get it working there as well. I strongly recommend it. I think otherwise the problem of ball fiddliness could have been solved by making balls out of something heavier. Like even if you stick to resin or PVC for the minis, make the ball out of something metal, and you'd be much better off because they would sort of hold them better onto whatever surface they are on. But if you're willing to do just a little bit of extra work and get magnets involved, you will, I swear you will enjoy the game that much more.
Yeah. I'm not sure where the scale difference is coming from, but my conspiracy theory around that thing is that Mantic used Imperial for their measurements and the manufacturer used metric.
Interesting. Although I'm tempted to say we'd feel a larger variance if that was the case, but I cannot be sure about that.
Yeah, this is just from my side, because I know that we got this in the first or second edition Dead Zone box. The neoprene mat that came with the set was, or the grid on there was supposed to be 3 inches. And the grid on the acrylic on the neoprene mat was 7.5 centimeters, which is a little bit short, about 3 inches. But it's like the whole mat in total should have been 61 centimeters, and it was 60. So it was just that little bit off with the terrain, because it like putting the large terrain pieces were a little bit larger than the mat and something like this. So this happened before when you like ordering in Europe or somewhere else, and you get in the measurements that things in scaling are some slightly off on both sides, and then things don't fit anymore. So the other possibility is obviously that PVC has a different shrinkage, depends on its hardness. So if the mixture is a little bit messed up, it doesn't shrink as it is calculated, and then of course it doesn't fit anymore. So
yeah, and there's a lot of variables with sculpting and molding things as well. It depends how warm it is or how cold it is. I can completely get behind that. I think it was second edition, because I've got first edition Dead Zone mat, and that fits perfectly. So it must have been second.
Yeah, okay. So what material in general would you prefer for a board game? Because I know the Mantic did some experiments with different hardness of PVC, also with the Dreadball minis, because usually the board game models are of a little softer PVC and comes colored. While now the manufacturing processes developed a lot and changed and improved, because like the PVC that Mantic used 10 years ago and what is achievable now on the board games, like just comparing the Dungeon Saga Origin models to the Dreadball originals, there's a huge difference in quality from the manufacturing side. But I guess it would still be best to stick with PVC for a board game, or would some more detailed material, like a more sturdy resin, be a better option? What would you guys think?
Having had experience with the original, they experimented with something called Restic, which is part resin and part plastic, and it had a tendency to just bend. So you had a lot of players doing a Michael Jackson Smooth Criminal impression, just leaning forwards permanently.
It was like that.
Yeah, and it was easily sorted. You could put it into hot or and reposition it and let it settle, and it will kind of hold the new shape. But obviously, it was a bit finicky. If you did it too much, it would just ruin the restic. But I think people have had a lot of success with it to mold it. Now, I believe it's either resin or plastic that they do the minis in. I know the giants are resin, which are these massive Dreadball players. Just these big creatures and robots and stuff. And the resin will have more detail to it. So you can get more features on there. The plastic, they stopped doing multi-part kits in season 2 and just did the full, here's the player, put it on the base kind of thing. And that works a lot better.
You mean in 2nd edition, not season 2?
Oh yeah, 2nd edition, yeah. But
purely for clarity. I say as someone who despises gluing them together.
Yeah. For clarity's sake, yeah. The multi-parts stopped after Extreme, because I do remember putting together the Grogans, and they had different armor options for if you wanted them pure jacks or you wanted one as a keeper. But
it's guards who become keepers. Sorry, I'm a stickler for this shit. I have the rule book. I know just about by heart.
What did I say?
So, you said jacks.
I said jacks. Oh, yeah, guards
jack.
become keepers. Yeah, Grogan guards. But yeah, the plastic is doing really well. So I would stick with plastic or resin, whichever is with however much detail you need. Depends on what material you'd pick.
I mean, well, for board games, it's usually the big question: do we want to have the more details or more sturdy miniatures, depending on what kind of market you're going into and what people expect from it? Because some want to be able to throw their models across the table without damaging them. So this is a thing. What I personally see is anything that don't need assembly is a good choice to start, because this is usually the big point with board gamers, because tabletop gamers or war gamers are used to assemble the models and paint them up. But if you market to board gamers, which Dreadball definitely is, assembling models is a in general, especially for PVC, because you either need a super glue or, depending, I live as in Central Europe, there's a German brand who sells PVC glue, so I can get that stuff from the hardware store to assemble a PVC model easier, but everyone else needing super glue that's not a pleasant thing to get things out of the box and play. So yeah.
The truth is that the less assembly these things require, the quicker the game gets played and the quicker it can actually grab any particular player. The more roadblocks like that you put down, the more difficult it will be to actually break through to any audience like that, I feel. Even including people who actually get the game. If it doesn't get played for however long, if for whatever reason assembly isn't happening and the box is lying somewhere forgotten, that means that no further material for that is being bought and no word of mouth is spreading. So I think going with the assembled and ready models is the way to go, which admittedly I'm a little concerned about the future, because I know that some of the minis that came out after 2nd edition released, things like the recent new support assistance, and I think that includes the giants that were introduced with Overdrive, which was kind of Dreadball's lighter, faster sister game that focuses on the giants. They all required assembly, and so I'm a touch worried. 2nd edition did come out with models pre-assembled, although if you got the Kickstarter version, you had to put them on bases, which actually wasn't a bad thing, because the retail boxes had a unfortunate tendency to have the models facing not exactly the right way, which was a bummer, with the bases actually having physically sculpted sort of threat areas, threat sides. But I think having them ready to go and having them in colored material was great for getting the game onto the table as quickly as possible. You don't even have to paint anything. It's very clear which team is which, and you can start playing right away and then consider what you want to do with them in terms of paint jobs and so on. I think that was smart, and I gladly hope they do something similar with All-Stars when that comes.
Yeah, so let's pick up some, how to say, what's great and what's not so great about Dreadball, because there, think at the moment the big other sports game out there is still Blood Bowl, with an intro game of Blitz Bowl, and any other game was Guild Ball, that's more or less fantasy football or fantasy soccer game that sadly died off because the company said they don't know what else to release anymore, so they just stopped supporting it, which kind of was a big mistake because everyone was expecting that game to go on forever. With both of them having different approaches to models and gameplay, like Blood Bowl is a full-fledged war game. You need to assemble your models, you need to more or less paint them, and then takes about 2 hours to 2.5 hours to get the game done. So it's not just an easy pick-up board game that is quickly. That's the Blitz Bowl version that is like an easy intro. So compared to the other sports game or board games in general, what are we really liking about Dreadball, Dom?
There's a couple of things that grab me. I sadly have to admit that I have very little experience with the other games you mentioned. I didn't get the chance to play Blood Bowl. I want to say I heard or seen Blitz Bowl played, or was like briefly introduced to it, probably via a tabletop simulator variant. And I did get a demo of Guild Ball at some point, and while it was interesting, there was something about it that was weirdly that still felt obscure, that didn't really grab me. The other thing was that I think I remember it sort of, it had two sort of levers that it moved for player abilities, both the size of the dice pool and the success threshold, which made things a little more, and wasn't very clear about which was affected when, which sort of pushed me away a little. But I should be talking about Dreadball, not the other games. So there's a number of things that the overall design feels like there's qualms I have with it, but the overall design seems to be fairly smooth and elegant, despite a couple of nicks in it that I also don't know how to fix, so I can't really talk, kind of. But the fact that the pitch where you play the game is divided into hexagonal spaces, hexes, which means that measuring any distances becomes very easy, and as soon as you understand how that works, which is also extremely simple, it becomes very intuitive. The fact that the only thing that's like affected by situational modifiers is the amount of dice you're rolling also makes it easier to sort of be able to consider what are your chances of success on any particular action. You don't have to worry about your player's stats being affected. Those stats are what they say they are. It's just a number of dice that will differ. So that sort of I'm not sure simplicity is the right word, but there is a straightforwardness into how Dreadball plays. It's an interesting mix in terms of its back and forth, where you get to play your entire turn, as it were, but you only get 5 actions apart from like cards and other extra stuff that you get to do, despite your team normally having about 6 players on the pitch at any given time. So it's your pick who does what and who stays put and sort of covers an area and so on. But the biggest things I think that sort of grabbed me about Dreadball was the finite time a game will play, like any real sports game kind of should. Any real sort of IRL sports game will have a time limit, and Dreadball has as well. Of the 14 rushes, 7 of which are the home player, 7 belong to the visiting player. So you apart from if you really go into like sudden death rules, theoretically you could be at it for a while, but by default you know that the game will have an endpoint. You won't be sitting here for 3 hours or more if you are evenly matched. And the other thing that really sort of spoke to me about Dreadball was the fact that fouls are a legitimate choice in the game. That is to say, there are plays that are in-universe illegal that you can and sometimes should be doing, but you might be penalized for. So you take a little extra risk on top, but for a chance of significantly better results, whether it's into the effects of any given action or to rewards for committing to those illegal plays in the form of crowd support, which was the sort of another thing that sort of grabbed me, which is the game considers its in-universe audience a part of it, and the crowd sort of, it's a very minimal part as well. It doesn't really add much in terms of like rules overhead. I feel it could be a little more involved, but it doesn't have to be, and it works fairly well, where there are things that the audience likes, and when you do it, the crowd will react, and you will be rewarded for getting the crowd excited about what you're doing. These were the kind of main things that grabbed me about it. It's a straightforward approach to modifiers and general play, and the fact that it takes into consideration in-universe things that I didn't expect it to take into consideration.
I think the word describing the rules, this is a general Mantic thing, is the easy to learn and hard to master, because it's the
that's the gold standard.
Yeah, because rules are simple in the writing, but not as simple in the execution. And so it's like you get to learn.
I'm almost inclined to argue otherwise. I found the wording of some of the rules troubled a little bit.
Yeah,
but when you actually take a look at how they look in play, it becomes very clear.
Yeah, I mean,
that's another thing I have opinions about. Maybe we'll get into that later. Maybe not this time.
Let's see how long this episode takes us. So let's a quick shout out to our listener. If you want anything, other topics that we cover about Dreadball, going into more details about gameplay, seasons, or whatever you want to like, models, background, just leave a comment on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you follow us, and let us know what you want to hear about the next episode. And Matthew, what do you like about Dreadball?
Well, like Dom's already touched upon, the rules are very streamlined. A friend of mine describes Mantic as a games company that also happens to make models, and it's very accurate. And some of them have obviously defected from another popular miniature gaming company. But yeah, they've taken the time to test it thoroughly, to get people's opinions, and to say, right, we're just going to change the amount of dice that you roll. And they've kept that through Dead Zone and a lot of their other games as well. And it's not about complicated maths. You just start off with 3 dice, and then you go higher or lower, depending on the situation. They lay it out very clearly on the little strips. They describe what the action is, and then they have a little box in the rule book that says what ability you're using or what number you need, and then either a 1 for just 1 success, a 2 for 2. You do a 1, 2, 3, but you can do it up to 3 times in a row, but you need 1 success, 2 successes, then 3 successes, one after the other. Or there's the X one, which is usually contested against the opponent. And there's no kind of, I've taken 6 wounds, so I'll roll 6 dice to get a 5-up save or something like that, except for when you get wounded. But when you take damage from slam attacks, but that's all worked out by the dice pool itself.
That and
Going a bit
the
off.
amount of potential wounds doesn't
Yeah.
influence the actual test. You test your armor,
No, exactly.
which is specified in the action. So that's fine. Point of order: 1 to 3 tests. They can actually be done as many times as you want in a single action. It's just they will need 1 extra success every time you do it, so they become functionally impossible relatively quickly.
Relatively, yeah. Unless you really push your luck and you're very in tune with your dice, which sadly
Or you
my
go
dice.
resources. Or you go to resources. What we didn't touch on were, for example, coaching dice, which are basically dice that you can add to any test rolled by one of your players. I'll note that when we talk about players in the context of Dreadball, we do most of the time mean the models on the pitch. The people playing the game are referred to as coaches, which was another little tip that I enjoyed about Dreadball. But yeah, coaching dice, if you manage your coaching dice well and you really need someone to really push through the entire pitch and multiple players they have to defend the ball against, you technically could, but that's a tall order anyhow.
And then they made it. Yeah.
No, I think what you said, this is the gambling aspect in the board game. So there are those people who want to play it safe and those who want to risk it and trust their dice. So this is I think a neat option to have for people to choose from what they want to do.
And they've added the option for re-rolling as well. So you can do action cards, which gives one of your players a different action or a specific thing to do. Or when you've rolled dice, you can get rid of one of your cards to re-roll one of the dice. And that's a nice little thing they've put in extra, excuse me, on top of coaching assistants that do something similar.
If I recall correctly, I think that was introduced in 2nd edition. I think it was like I haven't had much involvement with 1st edition, but I was, from the general reaction when I kind of joined online spaces or the one big space, I was under the impression that was a big and welcome addition to manage the sort of random aspect of Dreadball. The fact that it has a random aspect is I've encountered the opinion, and I feel like it's a touch haughty, but it isn't entirely incorrect in that the Dreadball has a bit of, it has a, maybe not DNA, but it has a bit of a vibe of chess.
Yeah.
Its emphasis on positioning and facing especially, but with a random aspect, functionally making it impossible to make it a solved game, which a number of people I spoke to appreciated.
Exactly. The exploding sixes system makes it really unpredictable because you can roll you can do a slam with a guard for 5 dice straight in, and you can roll like 1 success. If you're defending on 1 dice, you could roll several 6s in a row and just bounce away wherever you please. And that's what makes it great. It makes it great for Hail Mary plays as well, streaking across the pitch and then making a 1 dice throw at the goal, at the strike hex. And if it goes well, you're just elated afterwards and it's all worth it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so unpredictable, and that's what makes it brilliant.
I do have to say that I think I have the most fun in Dreadball when I'm making those very risky plays. Yes, I admit that it is great that you have the options of conserving your resources and playing it safe or going all out. But just about every time, even when it results in a loss, those Hail Mary plans, those that rely on everything going well, when they don't go well, there's that feeling of I tried. It could have been great, but on the last moment he tripped. It always sort of just about tells a story, and you can see yourself shouting at that player in the locker room after the match. But when it goes well, oh man, it is genuinely some of the best feelings I had when playing tabletop games. It's probably part of why I like Dreadball so much. That when it does go well, it feels phenomenal.
Yeah. I think to point down the one thing I like in Dreadball over other games, it's the dynamic, because there is no reset in between. The things stay where they are. There is no after your turn, or like in Blood Bowl when you score and everything is reset to the default lines and you start again, or with the soccer-based game where you have a kickoff. So in Dreadball, it stays dynamic. So I can see why the chess reference is coming from, because the game actually never stops. It's still, you have this need of forward thinking, because just because your turn is over, it doesn't get a reset to set things back and start again. So you have to think about, do we want to end there where you are, even if you score, or if it's better to do something else just to get in a better position the next turn? So this is my, I like those dynamic games in their development more than the more static or turn-based games than others, especially for a sports game. Like, there are other games that are better based as a turn-based game with a slow and a more static gameplay, but not for a sports game. They expect the dynamic going on. So let's make it outstanding for me compared to others.
And the fact that you can kind of interrupt somebody's turn using run interference, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, you can just block somebody's line of sight, or if you're really lucky, knock them over and let them make them let go of the ball,
which ends their rush.
Yeah, it ends their rush completely and causes
that's
turnover.
I feel like that's a bold move on Mantic's side with that rule, that if you lose control of the ball, which includes attempting to pick it up from the ground and failing, your turn is immediately over.
Yeah,
I think that's a bold choice, but it adds that very sizable sort of chunk of tension to the game.
It does, and that's really where that's why it's slightly simple. In that it's kind of the other way around. With Dreadball, you do all of the fighty stuff and the positioning first, and then you do the ball work. Blood Bowl is the other way around. The other way around, you throw the ball first, and then you do the blocky punchy stuff, and that's where you can get the turnover in that. But thing is, with you can do the run interference, you can do causing a turnover, but if you're lucky enough to catch that ball, double the pickup, and then throw it into the opposing goal, then you've just scored points in your opponent's turn.
That's one of the biggest, I want to say almost disrespectful moves you can do, apart from maybe making them drop the ball and cause a turnover. But I'd argue it's the better move, because it doesn't stop the opponent's turn. It doesn't completely rob them of their chance to actually play the game. And yet it feels like a big, fantastic, shiny middle finger to score in the middle of their turn. And again, it makes the game feel really great when you manage to pull off a fairly rare move like that as well. Yeah,
I think there's in general some great game elements when you have those risk-reward options to choose from and say, I'm really sure I want to do it. Yeah, just do it. And it's good. If it works off, it's just that great feeling. If it doesn't work, I told you. It's
this last thing I'll just briefly mention is it will very much depend on the person and the type of gamer they are. But apart from very few situations, Dreadball is the game I enjoy most, even when I'm losing. Seeing someone else come up with a cool move or strategy, or especially if it's someone you introduce to the game and suddenly something clicks for them and they pull off a move you didn't expect. Looks great on the board and feels great when you see it happen. I've got at least one story like that, I think. So like I think I only hate Dreadball when I just cannot roll a success to save my life, but that will come out of any game that involves dice. But otherwise, I can be losing, but seeing my opponent either exploit my mistakes and allowing me to learn, or just pull something off I didn't consider, is a great feeling as well.
So this might be just for me, but I think I would describe Dreadball as the game where 5 minutes in, both both coaches are standing and not sitting anymore to the board and rolling dice.
Yeah, it does get you up and moving, especially when got a table, like a proper table in front of you, and you have to reach down to move your players. But you kind of, you kind of look over the board like you're looking at a chessboard, but from above. And you're thinking, right, if I move there, can I run over here, and can I catch the ball from this direction? And it's really strategic, and it gets you involved as well. And the whole fact that you're called a coach, and it really encourages you to stand up and go, come on, lad. You get this kind of relationship with your models. You give them names, you give them little personalities, and it kind of involves you more that way. Because my convict team, they're all kind of different style models, but I've painted them all as different video game characters. So every now and then, it's like, come on, Vass, you can do this.
I love a team with an inspiration, with a theme. That's excellent.
I always try to theme them somehow, but yeah.
Yeah, I just say I have my forge for the team is called Because We Can. Inspired by someone else with a similar slogan, but it was like in that it fits the risk reward and gameplay stuff going on. It's like it's giving them the pick. So the more tricky question now is what do we dislike, or what do we think could be improved with the re-release, Matthew?
With the re-release, maybe cause at the moment we've got 2 different books. One is the core rule book, then we've got the errata and FAQ for that, and then we've got the Magnetar Tour book, which kind of gives more explanation for things, does a little bit of kind of storyline as well of like previous matches, and kind of streamlines the abilities and stats of the teams. Maybe have all of that in one place moving forwards. Have a look at some of the teams that aren't performing so well. I know it's a kind of unpredictable game, but some teams are less likely to be played because they're not as good as maybe the standard human team or the Marauders. Because when it first released, it was Corporation and Marauders, which is human versus orc, and then they released the Void Sirens, which are the female humans, and they have a slight advantage in that they can run interference. And they have it. And first edition, that was a big thing because the normal humans couldn't do that. Second edition, it's not quite so effective. Everyone can run interference now, but they've got an extended version, which is good. So maybe more of looking at how some teams can be tweaked to be more competitive.
So overall team balance would be the best improvement for later on. Tom, what are you thinking about this?
So it's a Dom, not Tom, just to be clear.
Dom, sorry, not native speaker. So and this is the podcast where nobody knows how to pronounce anything. So it's like
that's fine. I don't particularly mind, but just point of order. So there's a couple of things. I have to absolutely agree with Matthew about the multiple rule books and the Magnetar updates being functionally behind a paywall. There is I appreciate that Mantic has to make money somehow, but there is a free rulebook which is based on the original 2nd edition rulebook. It's just slightly trimmed down. It does give you all you need to play, but it is technically outdated, especially with the release of Magnetar. Like, you can take the free rulebook and take the errata and you're okay. But Magnetar straight up adjusted some of the stats of some of the teams, and from what I understand, it was supposed to address some of the balance issues, including the notorious Extreme team, which is basically the Extreme free agents we briefly talked about, assembled into a sort of team of misfits that apparently was horrifically overpowered upon release of second edition. They got a solid bashing with the nerf hammer, but for whatever reason, tournament organizers are still scared of them. They do not see play. So I straight up can't form an opinion whether they are okay now or not, because I haven't really seen them in any official setting. And I have very little experience with them in like the private space, shall we say. I believe the free rulebook should like Magnetar also came with a couple of historical matches, which is an interesting concept where you have a sort of pre-built team that has some experience under its belt and has some abilities and stat upgrades in it, and you can sort of replay a historical match. I can't say that concept grabbed me very much, but I think, but I have to admit it's kind of nifty. Maybe it's just not for me. I believe, though, that the stat updates should have been included either in the errata or an updated free rulebook or set of free rules should have been released. Blocking new players from the most current and assumingly best version of the game doesn't seem very smart.
And a lot of tournaments these days will require you to have the Magnetar rulebook.
Yes.
And pick your teams from there. It's all right if you've got a friend who's got the rulebook on them, but if you're coming into it for the first time, or you've like played it a few times and just started tournament scenes, then you'd have to spend like, what is it? I think it was about 12-15 quid.
More or less. I think the biggest problem there was that the digital version of it had the same price as the physical release. And for people who were just getting into the game or wanted to check out a tournament, that was not a great pick and a weird choice. I don't know if it's still the case. If it is, I don't think that's great.
But I just looked it up. At the moment, the digital version is more expensive than the printed one.
That's absurd. I cannot not say that. That's absurd.
That is Xbox levels of money making.
I think this has to do because they are selling off, or in the store sales, having the printed books on sale while the digital one. And so that they switched around. But it's like, not as it. This is some personal feeling about this, but I'm in general a more friend of the free-to-play approach, so that people want to buy things and not must buy things. So I hope that we see Dreadball in their companion added with the, how to say, more accessible rules. Because even if you need a subscription for 1 month, it would be cheaper than to buy the digital PDF version. But overall, I think the rules should be more accessible and free. With a team builder, this is also something I'm in general missing, because if you need to assemble your teams, and not having a proper team builder is a downside here. We
at least the second edition book, the sort of default teams feel like they feel very reasonable. They feel very sensible. So I very rarely had to engage with actually putting a team together from scratch. The easiest way to get a league going is to start with the default roster and sort of from there. But admittedly, I have at least one person who I introduced to Dreadball made the point very quickly of, I would like to be able to assemble my own team, my own guys, and that is a very reasonable thing to bring up, whether in the context of league play or in some mode of play available for more casual leagues. There's a couple of qualms I have with Dreadball. I don't know if we have time to talk about it.
Well, we are about an hour in, so we can touch a little bit on that topic again before we go.
I'll try not to go on
the
too long
final.
because a number of these I'm not sure how to fix either, but I think it's worth just throwing out there.
Then before you start
yeah.
your rant, let me just quick insert because you mentioned league play. This is also what I liked about Dreadball, to have a proper league play. But in nowadays modern times, digital support for a league would be much appreciated, because it's like you need doing it in a club or wherever at home with friends to have a proper app to do it, or a website that supports with all the stats, the upgrades, the experience, or whatever's coming up for the league, and that you can just add in results without needing to manage your own programs or have lists around that people need to fill out. So this would be, I think, the biggest support Red Bull could have for general to get played more is to have a digital league play support in the companion app or somewhere else with the tool. Yeah.
That I totally agree with.
Exactly.
Like I am a freak and I enjoy putting together spreadsheets that do that sort of stuff. So, I never finished it, but I had a fairly robust spreadsheet that managed league stuff, and I want to do a better version that actually like lets you pick your abilities, like automatically tracks your level ups and that sort of stuff. But I am a freak. Having that and in fact having that sort of support provided by the designers feels like just doing right by your players and by your customers. So I do completely agree there that having that sort of available out of the box would be fantastic.
Yeah, I found a fan-made spreadsheet with all of the upgrades and everything, all of the team rosters, and just everything you can ask for to keep track of things. But having Mantic do an official companion to Dreadball, and maybe having some like quick lookup rules as well as part of it, maybe.
Oh hell yeah!
Because other companies have done that. You could just type in part of a rule and it comes up with the section rather than flicking through the rule book. And yeah, you could search for it on the PDF, but having an app to do that is just top tier.
For all the straightforwardness of Dreadball, when you get into teams and some of their unique abilities, you start seeing weird interactions, and you really need to bite into some of the rule text. So that would be extremely useful. I had so yeah. Just I'm not gonna try. I'm gonna do my best to not get too get too into the nitpicks that I have about Dreadball.
Well, it's easy for you to say.
Especially since I'm not sure how to fix them either, and that's kind of part of what I'm looking forward to about All Stars, to see what they do with the current rule set. One thing. So I've got kind of, I want to say three things. The third thing is kind of three things in one, but they kind of boil down to the same thing. Thing number one is the agility stat. So agility was introduced in second edition as like an extra stat for every player. It used to be that what agility governs now used to be governed by the speed stat. The speed got split into speed and agility. Speed now only handles the dash action and some other unique abilities. The dash action being also a curious option that allows you to basically extend your movement beyond its normal limits of any particular player at the cost of a test, so introducing a risk factor. Agility handles things. So agility handles kind of a little too much. It handles getting out of the way of harm. It handles stealing the ball from others, weirdly enough, whereas otherwise you use skill for any ball-related actions. It also handles passing players without getting tripped by them, so evasion. And there's probably something, and yes, standing up as well. Yes, so after not being knocked prone by an attack or an effect, agility is what you roll to stand up. It is functionally a god stat. If you have high agility, you have a decent chance of avoiding a lot of the threat that's coming your way.
Yeah, looking at the Z's.
And that way, anything that can be thrown at you, you can probably get out of, and suddenly you have a massive advantage over your opponent. theoretically, that could be fixed by specifically bringing. I think the suggestion was to bring evasion over to speed, since it is also an action that sort of handles you moving around the pitch. The problem I have with that is that would dramatically nerf the Matsudan, who are my favorite team. So, I understand where that argument is coming from, but I'm reluctant to approve, because that would be a pain point for me.
I want all of these changes, but not for my favorites.
Yeah. I recognize that I have a giant bias there. I cannot deny that, and I understand that choice if that happens. But give my boys something else if that happens. Maybe if that change happens, they'll no longer be honorable, and I can break some heads easier. Never mind. The other thing is run interference. So run interference is a weird point because it can be a really hype moment in any game. It can also be very much a pain point for anyone who doesn't interact with the rule much, and the reason that happens is because run interference is very inelegant compared to the entire Dreadball rule set. It has a bunch of prerequisites and weird things that you have to know about and be able to do in order to do it at all. This isn't entirely and then you get extended interference, for example, for the Void Siren team. On top of that makes it easier, but is another layer of that rule that you have to understand. I have no idea how to fix that. I don't know how you can write that rule better in order for it to work and be vaguely balanced. But the way it looks right now on the page is incredibly clunky. I sadly don't know how to fix it. And the final thing is my biggest kind of pain point, I think, is that the captains were a very cool idea in second edition, and they are completely absent from casual play. They are only involved with league play. They do not function at all in sort of one-off play, and I think that's a big mistake.
I think part of that
decks of cards as well is a kind of a tricky question. I don't hate that, but it adds kind of a barrier to engage with them. Which is why Mantic very quickly introduced rules for playing them without cards, and I think that side of them should be expanded upon. What I would want there is, and Dreadball arguably doesn't need new teams at this point. There's like over 30 of them. But I feel that if there were new teams, it needs only one, and that's a team that starts with a captain on their roster. Because I feel that would mirror also part of the development of the seasons in first edition, because whenever a new mechanic, new element was added, a team was introduced with that element on board right away. And captains didn't get that, and I feel that was a bit of a mistake. This kind of spreads slightly into Giants and MVPs, who are also completely absent from casual play. Giants have a bunch of extra sort of rules on top of them, so they're a bit difficult to engage. I think borrowing better rules from Overdrive might be a way to go. MVPs, they are just players with some cool stuff, but integrating them into casual play because of the disparity of their quality isn't... I want to say it isn't super easy. It actually is. MVPs have costs. If you balance them out, it doesn't have to be too hard. At the same time, in league play... Actually, I'm not sure that's a bad thing. Hiring an MVP permanently during league play is just about prohibitively expensive. Loading them with your underdog bonus is one of the better things you can do with it, though. So I don't hate that. But yeah, basically all of the sort of side content beyond just teams for Dreadball is a bit too far away from the regular one of Dreadball games. If anything, out of the three things that I have trouble with in terms of Dreadball, this is the one All-Stars might be the best at fixing, but I am worried that it will do the opposite, that it will sort of seclude that side of Dreadball into its own game. I'm not sure that's the way to go. I'd be excited to be proven wrong, to be quite honest, but that's something we will have to see.
I mean, let's close this podcast with the final topic, which one reason why we are doing this now, because Mantic announced to have a re-release with a Kickstarter of Dreadball All Stars. They already announced it last year, and now some details are coming in. I call it a re-release because it's not supposed to be a new edition of actual Dreadball, but a new intro game. It's like somehow Overdrive was also an intro game into Dreadball, but didn't really work out that well. It was more like a side game for existing players to use the models they
I'm
hardly
not
ever
sure
use.
Overdrive was ever meant as an intro game for Dreadball. It was from what I recall, it was always intended as like a beer and pretzels alternative, a lighter and quicker game.
Yeah, and that's why I call it an intro game,
isn't a bad
because
idea,
it's like
but
the lighter and more faster games are usually the ones people pick up to get into it. When they say, yeah, this is the cool game that's hard to get into or hardly available, just pick the other one that's faster, easy to come up, models on it, and things like that. So, but
I get where you're coming from, though, because there are fewer moving parts for beginner players. You've not got 6 people on your side. You've got 3. And you've got the base gameplay of it is basically King of the Hill. You have an active zone, and you have to push everyone out the way to stand in it. But yeah, I can kind of see All Stars as being slightly like Overdrive in that sense of fewer players and fewer stuff there, but they're also tougher, like with the Giants in Overdrive.
I mean, what was teased until now was that it's lighter on the rules. If they hired an unknown or untold big game designer to do the refresh. It's not supposed to replace Dreadball, but be an intro into the Dreadball owned Warbuff universe. And it will have fixed teams to start with, so that the whole team building aspect is removed. You just choose your team and just play right away, which I think worked well as intro game for Halo and Dead Zone, because it lowers the barrier of entry significantly if you don't need to adjust anything and just I like how they look, and that's what I play and go with it. I don't know of any more details yet, so this we might cover in a future episode when we know more or get more information out from Mantic. But so what do we expect from that game to happen? So I mean, I'm curious about what the models will look like, what material they choose, and what I heard there will be different pitches in. Ronnie mentioned it somewhere that there will be a low gravity pitch that will affect how some rules adjustments. So I expect to be more into the beer and pretzel light gameplay, Friday gaming night game rather other than Blood. So I don't think there will be a league support in All Stars, but well, so it's how it's called a refresh in to see if people are still interested in the Dreadball and if it could pick up. So, what else do we expect from the game, Matthew?
Well, firstly, shout out to my friends Sam and Lee, because they pretty much invented in their area pub Dreadball. So they would just meet up every now and then, play Dreadball in the pub with a pint. And
that's great.
It's amazing. We want those days again. What I kind of predict for All Stars, I've seen one image of them playtesting it, and from what I can see, it's got a similar pitch to Dreadball, obviously. The standard sized players, but I've seen like these little reference cards, like you would have for notes and presentations. They've got those with tokens on them, and that kind of led me to believe that it's going to be slightly similar to Overdrive, in that the players will have more than one wound or more than one kind of armor point kind of thing. What I hope they don't do is the drafting system with Overdrive, because that is a bit of a strange point. It's different, yes. It's kind of how the Overdrive system worked. But the idea is for that is that you bring 6 models and each player chooses 3 from the whole pool, including their opponents. So technically, if we all brought the core set, one person could have 2 of the same character. Or they could just take all of the characters that you're familiar with and leave you with the rest that you don't really use that often. And that might kind of upset some people somewhat, but then equally seeing it as a balance thing, that could be good.
I don't remember that. I'm tempted to double check. I seem to recall that you'd bring 6 and pick 3 of those. You still either that or there will only be 6. I might be wrong. Never mind.
Yeah, I think it's 6 total. You bring 3 of yours, and the opponent brings 3, and then you pick 3 out of that 6. That's where I got confused a little bit. But yeah, you both bring 3 of your models, and you pick either yours or your opponent's or both. And it's unusual. It's not like it's not anything that's been done before. And it might put some people's backs up because, I spent ages painting this and I love this and I love playing with this and I can only focus on playing with this character and my opponent has him now. Otherwise, I hope they do stick to the kind of rules of Dreadball in 2nd edition, because they've ironed it out a lot and they've put a lot of effort into it. I hope that there's more support for the MVPs and the captains as well, because they were, in my experience, they're underutilized unless you're doing league play, which unless you've got loads of friends with Dreadball or are interested in playing Dreadball, it's not really a viable thing for casual play. But I'm hoping for the best with it. I'm hoping that it'll give kind of resurgence to the existing Dreadball scene as well.
I mean, it's good to see it coming out now, so that we know that Mantic still had it on the screen, that they still care, and they are going to re-release the models now, because it was like, the hand sculpted models that got into PVC production. So having a 2nd print run or a 3rd print run of models that you no longer have the masters available because it's happened long time ago is a tricky one. So when you need to redesign everything from scratch, it's a new game is the best way to do it, because just releasing new teams without any proper new book, anything, or a new starter set wouldn't work in that regard. So we may see people picking up the new models for the old Dreadball books or games. Tom, what is your opinion on All Stars?
So I think the word is cautiously excited. I'm excited. I'm excited because I'm excited for anything to do with Dreadball. It is my favorite game. That goes without question. So I'm curious to see what's next. I'm worried that it will be its own separate thing. It won't be more interesting stuff for the game I sort of already have and grew to know very well and love. There's a couple of things that I think it can do to still sort of win me over, and I have to admit I will probably buy into it anyway, because even if it isn't exactly what I wanted, I can probably make it what I want in a way. But that's kind of going away from it. I'm worried mainly that it will sequester MVPs and captains into its own thing. I would prefer the opposite to happen. I'm wondering if there will be any support for sort of mixing the All-Stars variant and regular Dreadball. I wonder if any changes or updates to the rules will sort of trickle down to regular Dreadball as well. I'm curious what sort of rule interaction will happen there, if any at all. There isn't that much that Dreadball really needs to fix, as it were, and even that is a bit of a tall order, or maybe just exaggerating. But I'm curious. I think I'm most curious what All Stars will mean for Dreadball that already exists. One thing, so even on the other hand, if they do end up making All Stars the thing that you use MVPs for, as it were, that's where they kind of live now. If you want to play more of that side of the game, because that's what it appears to be going in the direction of. I would love, and my excitement would very much skyrocket if the rules had support for making your own MVPs, your own characters. Even more so if there was some support for maybe you did manage to get to play a league, and you have like one big player that survived all of his games, accumulated a ton of experience, has a bunch of abilities, and is just a giant expensive badass. And now you can immortalize him as an MVP in All Stars. He now gets to play like the biggest leagues or something like that.
I completely agree. Elevating, just ranking up one of the spod players into a legend.
Being able, like, even if All Stars is its own game, if there's a way to attach it to existing Dreadball game or leagues this way, I think that would be quite an interesting way to sort of drum up some excitement for the older game as well. That may or may not be lying silently in somebody's cupboard. One thing I'm curious, probably the biggest thing I'm curious about is whether or how much inspiration would be drawn from a particular post on the Dreadball Fanatics Facebook page, which is weirdly enough probably the one and only main sort of online space for Dreadball at the moment. That's actually not very active recently, but it has kind of been the most active place online for the game. I'm not going to sort of say the name of the poster. I would love to shout them out, but I'm afraid of doxing someone accidentally. If you're listening to this by any chance, you will know that I'm talking about you. So feel free to like reach out to us to see if you're okay to be named, or if you'd like to talk about All Stars with us for that matter. But a gentleman back in 2020 made a sizable post on the group about a fan case mode called the All Star Showcase, which involved picking an MVP to play with and giving them an entourage of either like one or two regular players supporting them, or some like support staff, like the coaching assistants and or that sort of stuff. The idea was, I think, that you're supposed to only have one player on the pitch on your side, primarily being the MVP. And rather than your goal being scoring points, although that was useful, the point was to drum up as much fan support as you can. This was supposed to be a showcase. This was supposed to be a show. You were supposed to do the cool shit and excite the people, and you'd win that way by getting the biggest support. Also, one of the things it introduced was a new action called Ricochet, which, honestly, if it's the only thing you take from that fan mode, I will be elated. It's the one thing that Dreadball might be truly missing is the ability to maintain control of the game after bouncing a ball off of a wall or indeed a person. In fact, those who know, people will know about the dodgeball foul, which involves throwing the ball at an opponent with the intent to injure. The ball flies in universe. The ball flies at a speed of real fucking fast, if you forgive my French, in the game. So when someone gets hit by the ball, it's very difficult to dodge it. It's very easy to injure someone. The problem is that as soon as you throw the ball and lose control of it, your rush ends. It's very rarely a viable choice. But
except
being
out
able
of
to
anger.
set up a see, here's the deal. There absolutely will be situations where your only option, because you are blocked by run interference, for example, your only option will be to throw the ball at someone to injure them. But it might still be more reasonable to keep hold of the ball, because it's more difficult to get it away from you than it will be to pick it up from the floor later. This can actually differ between matchups, but that's a different story. But getting the ability to throw the ball, bounce it off of a player that hopefully got injured, and turn that into a pass. Come on, like that would be so fucking hype. So if there's one thing, having that little extra maneuverability with the ball would open a lot of space, especially if there's less players on the pitch on any given side. That would sort of open a lot more options. It probably would be very easy to balance, but I think it would be worth considering. Bottom line is, I'm curious how much All-Stars will take from the All-Star Showcase fan mode. If it does take any, I really hope the gentleman who posted that does get credit. Who knows? Maybe he's on the design team. That would be pretty freaking cool. Not gonna lie.
Pretty awesome.
So we'll see. If anything, dig into the Dreadball Fanatics page. Check out that mode. I think I got to play it once. I absolutely should try doing that more. I sadly sort of haven't touched Dreadball in a while, despite the praises I sing it. But I also just haven't been gaming recently, just due to life, as it happens. But I'm excited to go back to Dreadball whenever the opportunity strikes, and I want to take a look at the fan mode before All-Star happens, just to see how much shared DNA is there. And honestly, even a little bit would be cool, because that would only show that Mantic is paying a little bit of attention to Dreadball fans after all. Even though Dreadball support has been quite spotty throughout the years, what we got was cool. I wish there was more, but I understand it's not always possible. One thing I'd like to touch on, Matthias, I think you mentioned like a low gravity pitch. Custom pitches, themed pitches were introduced in the Magnetar expansion. And apart from the stat updates, that's probably the best thing that Magnetar did. And I feel ashamed that I forgot about it, because it was a fantastic idea. I think it could have been handled better by cards with extra rules rather than having to look at the rulebook. The format in which it was released could have been better. But it's fantastic. And if All-Stars is diving in that direction, I think that bodes great. And I quietly hope that those pitches will be adaptable to Dreadball, because if it's in a format that lets you interact with it a little better rather than having to remember a bunch of extra rules, if references is easily available, I think that would be real fun even in regular Dreadball. So I'm curious to see what happens there.
Yeah. Just a quick one. For the online communities out there, there's obviously still the Mantic fans Discord that got some more recent activity in Dreadball, with people talking about it and posting their painted teams, which I guess started about half a year ago again to coming back into life. There's also the Dreadball subreddit that was kind of active until
Which
2
is
years
dead.
ago.
Yeah, no, the subreddit is dead. I swear to God, as I see a post there once a year. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I
maybe
think
least.
it
I'm
was
sorry.
about
It would be
2
cool if the
years
spaces
ago.
are live. Like, don't get me wrong, but you just
Yeah,
but the Reddit just isn't at the moment, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so but it's now, that there's always been people. So Facebook is the only community out there. Some hesitate because not everyone is on Facebook anymore, or don't like it
that's
for
quite fair,
several
sadly.
reasons. So if anyone wants to talk about Dreadball and doesn't want to use Facebook or want to jump onto the Fanatics group, you can always come up in the Reddit. People are happy if someone else is posting there. So get in there. Get on the Mantic fans Discord. There's some activity there, and let's see if the Kickstarter then revives the activity on their open sets.
I'm surprised myself that I'm somehow unaware of that Mantic Discord. If you want to send me a link, I'd be quite excited to sort of pay attention
for everyone,
to the Dreadball talk.
We put links down in the episode description. So for every listener on Spotify and watchers on YouTube, you find any referral links to the online communities down there. Also to a link to the Mantic rules for those who want to look into the free digital rules and to see what Dreadball is about. If you don't know it yet and are excited about All-Stars, to have a quick look into it. And any other closing words from you guys?
I'll briefly mention that there is also a tabletop simulator mod, which may be a touch clunky, but it was fan made and later sanctioned by Mantic. So big kudos to the people who put that together. I am ashamed that I don't remember who exactly it was, but I also, again, I don't want to accidentally dox people, but the guy who put that together has done a real big piece of solid work.
It is.
Like most of the clunkiness is just the limitations of TTS and sort of making the thing actually work. But playing any board game on TTS is a bit of a challenge, but it is a way to check out the Dreadball if you're curious before you sort of invest into it, which isn't very easy right now. So that's understandable that you might want to check it out first.
Exactly. And in the vein of Tabletop Simulator, there is a vassal module of Dreadball.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just very bare bones. It's just very basic, no kind of frills, but it does the job. And
and it does it quite well. Yeah. It's quite smartly put together. I remember in lockdown we ran 1 or 2 leagues and like online, and people having the option of vassal that was really appreciated. And it's very much, it is the core of Dreadball. It basically strips out a lot of bells and whistles and lets you just play the rules, as it were. But it's still quite clear in how things work, and very vassal takes a little getting used to, but it ultimately is quite user friendly once you click, and it won't take long to click. So
exactly. I joined one of the leagues as well, and once you get used to it, it's pretty easy. But Tabletop Simulator, I'd love it purely for the interactivity of it, being able to see things from different angles.
Yeah. So we have some great resources for people to look into until the Kickstarter come out. And as said before, please, if you have any wishes or themes to discuss for future episode, just write this in the comments on YouTube, on Spotify, follow or join us on our Discord. And so for everyone out there, thanks for listening. And whenever you're listening, have a good morning, day, or night, and goodbye.
Take care. Thanks for listening, guys.
All the best.